oppression. It starts with how we're raised. Well, it's very common. I'm part of the Gen X, that parents that were raising the Gen Xers were known for letting their kids kind of raise themselves. They were you're to be seen and not heard. Your emotions are not real. Don't listen to your gut instincts. It was, you've got food on the table, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head. You need to be quiet and stop complaining. And that, of course, shuts down your ability to self-express. And so it starts there. It starts with the in the home environment. By the age of 20, I had been diagnosed with autoimmune disorder. That's what not listening to yourself can do. It suppresses your immune system and pushes you into a state of chronic. It's cortisol, that stress response, the always, why are things not working out? I'm doing what I'm told is correct, but I'm not doing what I feel I should. And that discord between the two became my study of personal development. A lot of people have, especially the Gen Xers, difficulty with dating. We have the most number of single adults on the planet especially the United States, but it's everywhere that I've traveled, all over the world. Very few people are finding success in dating and relationshiping. What I hear from individuals are, I'm happier alone. And that's a problem. A divine soul relationship is the one where you know you as a divinity. A lot of people want the relationship without doing the hard work of getting to know who they are first. And that's where I start. I start with, all right, who are you? I think it's the hero's journey that all humans can put themselves on the path. They have the right, the responsibility, but they don't necessarily have the desire until there's a catalyst event to push them. I don't date men who are into playing games, video games, gamers. I won't do that. Nope. And that's escapism. Get high a little bit and then play the video game. That seems to be the popular thing. Like, wow, that's life for you. We're here to have an experience that is based on free will. Everything comes back to that. If I were a minister of anything, it would be the defender of free will.
The following podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice or opinion. Audience discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health. Today, I have a very wonderful guest with me. She's an ordained minister, a holistic health practitioner, and the founder/CEO of the Elevate Institute. She's a spiritual alchemist that reveals and heals what's standing in the way to your next highest good. She focuses on personal development and spiritual growth for the best possible life. And we're going to talk about the 3 pillars of her Ascension Program today. And that covers physical, holistic health, divine relationships, and being sovereign. That is a Reverend Eva Vennari. Eva, welcome very much to the show.
Glad to be here, Zach. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Thank you to be here. And so let's start off with a little bit of your background. I'd love to hear what has brought you to the here and now and what makes Eva today the Eva of today.
Brought me to the here and now. I followed the breadcrumbs, the little hints along the way that Spirit has left for me, or I left for myself maybe before I came in. But yeah, it's been a journey of getting very sick, being let's call it oppressed. That sounds like an appropriate place from a long time ago that led me to the set of chronic illnesses, and that set me on my journey. It's like when you get to the place where you can no longer function, then you can't even go to work. You've got to start doing something about it. And I waited a long time, but eventually found that doorway into my whole health. And that was a journey all by itself.
Yeah, it's funny how people are so stubborn, aren't we? Where we potentially ignore a lot of red flags along the way until the alarm bells and the sirens are ringing and flashing, and we just have to learn the hardest possible way. So it sounds like, just like anyone in the world, you faced a bit of hardship. You mentioned sickness, oppression. Do you want to go into that and talk about kind of what you've come out of, and maybe people can relate to that?
Yeah, I love to share the stories because people do hear themselves in the stories and they are amazed at how very similar mine are to theirs. And that's what I share them for. I'm not at all, there's no shame associated. There's no blame associated. Like when I mention, oppression, it starts with how we're raised. Well, it's very common. I'm part of the Gen X, that parents that were raising the Gen Xers were known for letting their kids kind of raise themselves. They were you're to be seen and not heard. Your emotions are not real. Don't listen to your gut instincts. It was, you've got food on the table, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head. You need to be quiet and stop complaining. And that, of course, shuts down your ability to self-express. And so it starts there. It starts with the in the home environment. And while it's great to have food on the table, clothes on your back, and a roof over your head, that doesn't meet all the human needs. And I think that was the beginning of not learning to not listen to myself. And while you're depending on others to support you for your survival, you tend to want to listen and believe them. And that was the beginning. So at age 13, I was considered depressed. Nobody knew about it. I barely knew about it. I just knew that life was not fun. So it started out with depression. And then by the age of 20, I had been diagnosed with autoimmune disorder. That's what not listening to yourself can do. Suppresses your immune system and pushes you into a state of chronic. It's cortisol, that stress response. Why are things not working out? I'm doing what I'm told is correct, but I'm not doing what I feel I should. And that discord between the two became my study of personal development. It's funny. I always thought of myself as a person through my 20s. I thought, I've been told I was always mature for my age. But when I took a emotional intelligence test for fun, thinking, I'll ace this, I scored phenomenally low, and it shocked me. And that really pushed me into a greater study of emotional wellness.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing that happens for a lot of children that grow up into young people, of course, in that they're looked at as emotionally mature or mature for their age. But what's being described is actually a coping mechanism and like a trauma response of having to grow up and kind of harden too soon. But what that means is inside that hardened outer calloused shell, exterior is that interior child who never got to fully healthily develop. And so let's back up a little bit, because there was one key part that you mentioned that was part of the oppression or perhaps trauma or just something that wasn't quite right in childhood. And you mentioned it even as a generational pattern that was common amongst Gen Xers growing up, in that you were told not to listen to your gut instincts. And that sounds like a pretty obvious thing. That sounds like something that, people are told not to go with their gut and fed other information instead. Do you want to go into some specifics of what you meant and how that kind of was a pattern within your upbringing or perhaps the upbringing of those at your time?
Yeah, I think it was meant to help me make decisions. But ultimately, what I have found over the years in this development path, this personal development path, is that being in alignment and being coherent, which means whatever you think should align and feel good. You should feel that in your heart and therefore give you the gut instinct of what to do next. That's the basic steps to manifestation. So if you're constantly not listening to your gut and I've got this idea and I feel really great about it. And you share it with a parent and they come in and go, oh no, Eva, you shouldn't do that. That's dangerous. Now you don't get to follow your own gut instinct. So there's a difference between knee-jerk reaction to a situation where you're not responding, but reacting, right? And then a response to your own internal guidance system. And I think that was the key difference between what I was experiencing and what I was told not to do. Yeah, I remember my father telling me very clearly, Eva, do not listen to your emotions. They misguide you. And I think that can be true, but if they are in concert with your thoughts and ideas, and you have a calling, if you will, and you can have those at any age, right? So if you have a divine message that's coming through you to achieve whatever it is that your idea is, you should be able to follow that for so many reasons. It's not just for your health, but for me in particular, that ended up being the message. And it's like, you can't do your life the way you're doing it, so we're going to shut you down and make you pay attention better. That's how it felt.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that the intuition or the gut instinct is use it or lose it, like any other muscle. The less you use it, the more it atrophies, and then the more it becomes even a foreign thing to even exercise. But I'm very curious. Are there like specifics, like specific instances where you could remember, I was made to go against my gut instinct on this and this and this, and those were major kind of key forks in the road for me growing up? Were there certain ones or thematic things?
I think it was just constant. I'll give you quick examples that maybe people can relate to others. It's my mother had a thyroid condition, so she was always cold, always had a sweater on. And that's common. As I learned, if you have a thyroid dysfunction, then you're always cold, and you're the one wearing the long sleeve shirt in the room, and everybody else is wearing a t-shirt and never, to get comfortable. But I remember many instances where I would have my jacket on and I'd go to take it off, and she'd say to me, "Don't take it off. It's cold in here." I mean, so that's such a minor thing, right? Initially, but you're telling a child, don't listen to your own body instincts. Listen to mine. And that's giving up your own free will, isn't it? And if you're talking about being a child, you think you're being guided. And of course, that's what was intended, but it was to my detriment. Another one was I was malnourished because of the food that we were eating. And I was in combination with being an athlete. So I was a gymnast, I was tap dancing, I played volleyball. I was, very active, tomboy-ish. And you need more calories for that. So I would eat, and a few hours later, I'd say, "Oh, I'm hungry again." And she would say, "No, you're not hungry. You just ate." "No, I'm actually hungry." And it was like that. So they sound minor, they sound small, they sound like maybe I was being bratty. Not at all. And that's what I was made to feel like. So there was shame placed on me for speaking back. Don't talk back. Don't speak your mind. Don't articulate how you feel, because we're right. And that was the general rule: be seen and not heard. Right.
Yeah, thank you very much for those examples, because those are actually two very important things. Like you said, they might seem minor to someone that is completely unconscious or unaware of the importance of, well, how important everything is to a child and everything that we say to a child is. But let's break those two down, because what we're talking about is the ability to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Children are not stupid. They are children, but they're not stupid. They have instincts. They understand their bodily functions. Even if they're not thinking about it, they understand them or understand them. A child is hot. They know they are hot. A child is cold. They know they are cold. And this is the old trope. Put your jacket on. You're going to get sick. All this stupid stuff. Like, if you are outside, you must have jacket. Child isn't going to let themselves freeze to death. They are not stupid. Children's bodies are a different temperature as they're running around, going crazy, or just because they're young and active or whatever they are. They are not you. You being the proverbial you parent. They are not you. Just because you're cold doesn't mean they're cold. Just because they're hot doesn't mean you're hot. A parent's job is to give them the option. Hey, here's your jacket if you need it. Or, it's why. I mean, I know why, because it's so insane to just enforce these universal, regulations that are unnatural versus allowing a child to regulate. And this is why when we go against internal regulation of a child and their own regulatory abilities, it creates such a cascade of problems, not only in their inability to regulate other things in the future, but their psyche, their mentality, their everything. And because the other example that you gave as well was another form of regulation in the food regulation. A child knows if they're hungry or not hungry, right? And like you said, there are nuances to the topic when if you're an active child, you are going to need more. Where is this arbitrary, no, you've had enough. Stop. This is a portion. It's so unthinking and it's just mechanical, just like, this is what portion a child should have because I think so. And it doesn't make sense. Obviously, nuance again, when we introduce unhealthy, nutrient poor foods or food like products to a child, they may overeat because their internal body isn't able to regulate because it's still searching for nutrients, even though it is technically full. Or if you have a child that has a sugar addiction because you fed them garbage, there could be a muddied, or if you've taught kind of food addictive behaviors or emotional eating, a lot of stuff can be going on. But at a default setting, a child will know when they don't need food anymore if you're giving them good food. And when we go against or disallow internal regulation, because that's what these are, it's a very serious matter. It's not a little thing at all.
I've shared a few of those stories in addition to this one. A lot of people were they have memories being forced to sit at the dining table with a plate of food in front of them unfinished because they didn't like the food. It was either not cooked to their taste or just, wasn't something that they wanted to eat or they felt full. And they were shamed into, you've got to sit there and eat it, even if it's cold, until, bedtime, or just go to bed hungry. And it was very interesting. It's like there's a lack of understanding about childhood development, and our taste buds are different as children compared to when we grow and mature and become adults. And those were lost nuances on my parents. And again, not to blame them, not to make them wrong. They didn't know. And I think if they were to do it all over again today, it might be different, but maybe not because they have their own things they're dealing with, their own needs. They wanted to make sure that money was kept onto a budget. And so that's why the portions and the control over when we eat and how we eat and what we eat. And I think that is a common guideline, and the guideline is off a little bit. And here's the interesting thing is I found that as a family gets onto a more nutrient dense diet and they supplement correctly, because we had supplements in our childhood as well. They were the little Flintstone. Remember the Flintstone chewables? So those were what we had, but they were unregulated as far as we didn't know if that's what we needed as children. And so we were taking supplements and we were eating the food that was served to us to a degree, if we liked it, right? We talked about that. It's just when a family in whole gets more nutrient dense food and they supplement correctly, they actually need less quantity of food. Yeah. And therefore you spend less on the overall food family budget. And it's true. It's just factual. It's like you eat better, your body uses it more properly. And not only do your emotions self-regulate, by listening to your body, but now your body self-regulates. And that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Every excuse is easily dismantled, like easy to dismantle, right? All the excuses, it's too expensive to eat. I went to the grocery store and it was $500. Okay, well, yes, food is getting more expensive. You are getting less quality. You are getting less quantity. There is that going on. Inflation, a dollar's worth, virtually zero now. Yes, that is all happening. But you can fill up a cart with $100 worth of food that's soda, chips, garbage, candy, donuts, blah, blah, blah. And it'll be X amount of dollars and you'll get X amount of nutrition out of it. Or you can fill up your cart with nutrient-rich, real, actual food as best as you can afford.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can't afford the organic right now, just get the regular vegetables. If you can't afford, grass-fed, get the regular steak. Whatever.
Can I give points on that? Because people don't know that pesticides are still used on organic food.
That's working within the realm of, does organic mean anything at all? Hopefully it does. Sometimes it does, maybe.
It's crazy. I mean, our water supply is so inundated with pesticides that even after filtering it, it is still present in our water after going through all of the natural flows of the Mother Earth, filtering it. But on that point, pesticides can be approved for organic crop use. And so just because you're holding a piece of whatever, apple or vegetable in fruit or vegetable in your hand, and it says organic on it, and it costs twice as much as the one next to it over here that says natural, no hormones added, no whatever it is that it's free of, get the natural one. It's going to be less expensive, and you don't have to pay for the organic certification label that the company who produces the food had to use to pay for it. So there are tricks to know about. and that's part of my job, is to help educate, because it's been poorly regulated, and the changes are not announced. You really have to pay attention.
Oh, absolutely. And I always advocate for someone doing the best they can, because when we start having those conversations, it's easy for people to slip into, I call it doomerism, like the gloom and doom. Well, everything, I don't know what to do. And then they just don't try at all. And that's why I say, hey, well, do the best you can. You know, if it makes you feel good that it says organic, it makes you feel good that it says natural, those might not even mean anything at all. Do the best that you can. Any of those options are probably better than Coca-Cola and chips.
By far.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, by far. Yeah. I always say this about water and any drink you take in. Get a filter or be one.
Or be one. Want to expand on that?
So if you do not filter your water before it goes into your body, you're now inundating your organs with the tasks. All of the energy it was needing to heal or reproduce new cells and regulate you are now being used to overcome the poisons you just put into it. So if you can filter your water before you put it into your body, you're going to give it a better chance of supporting its ongoing healing.
Yep. Fantastic point. Yeah, your body's going to have to filter it. And our body does have such wonderful filtration and detoxification avenues and pathways. However, it can only take so much. And especially when you're not doing other things to promote those, organs that, are necessary to get everything out of you, they're going to start piling up and building up after some time. And it really compounds. And that's why, it's really not that difficult. It's so insane to me how people think so little or not at all about something so critical to their body as hydration. People put zilch effort into hydration. They just go for convenience. So anything convenient comes with a cost. It's usually your health. Sometimes it's your money. Sometimes it's both. But it's really not that difficult to get proper water, is it? You get a filter or some sort of filtration unit at your house, at your apartment, at whatever. There's units that you can install on your sink. There's units you could plop on the counter if you're traveling. They cost a couple $100. You got it. The filters last for a while. And then it takes some work, yes, to consciously carry water with you. Okay, I'm going out. I need to bring water. I'm not just going to grab whatever water's out there. But what is worth spending effort and energy on, if not the water that makes up your whole body and makes up what, some people say, I think 90+% of your body. And you're not going to try to have that be a quality 90% of your body. It's really insane to me how screwed up people's priorities are. It's not that hard.
No, but they're also inundated with a bunch of fads and trends like alkaline water and drinking the Nestle water, which is reverse osmosis. Neither of those are good for you. And there's all kinds of excitement around, especially the alkaline water, and a lot of claims around it'll help you, it'll heal you. It hydrates, but what are you hydrating with? So I've got a whole article on my website that details that. It can be a heated conversation between those who are in love with there's certain foods, but I've got proof and evidence that when you drink nothing but alkaline water or nothing but distilled water, those two demineralize the body and you get worse over time. So I've got evidence and proof. I'm not saying this out of I have an opinion. I have a researched and backed and scientific evidence opinion.
Yeah, there's, alkaline water machines out there that certainly have fantastic marketing and affiliate structures that have made it very popular. But the most basic dismantling of that to me is you drink water. Where does it go? It goes to your stomach.
That's right.
What is your stomach supposed to have in it? Acid.
Yeah.
Your stomach needs to be acidic. And if you add alkaline water to it and add alkaline water to it and add alkaline water to it, what's going to happen? Now your stomach acid is less acidic. There's your digestion problems. There's everything. Obviously, everything's nuanced. I think having an alkaline water machine isn't inherently bad because, the science of you could use this pH to do that and this pH to do that and this pH to do that. That makes sense. You could use this one for cleaning, this one maybe for skin things, whatever. But just the umbrella drink alkaline water, I wholeheartedly disagree with for the aforementioned reason, wholeheartedly. You mentioned both reverse osmosis and distilled water being something that you disagree with as well, due to the lack of minerals in it. And so what's the solution for you? For me, what I do, I use a reverse osmosis machine. It has 4-stage filtration, a polypropylene filter, an activated charcoal filter, and then 2 reverse osmosis membranes. At that point, the water is at least a lot cleaner than it comes out of the tap. I then like to add a blend of organic minerals back into it before drinking it. Is that something that you do, or are you doing something else, or some different kind of filter? What are you doing?
Yeah, the reverse osmosis process, most of the machines, and I don't have stats on all of them, but I used to be in the water filtration industry. Years ago, I used to sell water filters. So this is part of my history of expertise. When it comes to reverse osmosis machines, most of them will if they filter, for sure, they get out all of the cysts, and they get out all the pesticides, the chemicals, great. But the problem is the size of the molecule of water becomes bigger than our receptacle sites in our body. So you could drink it, and still be thirsty because it's not actually absorbing, you're not actually hydrating. So again, not all of the brands, and I don't have them in front of me to say this is the best one. I just know the one out there that's being used in most office buildings and most public spaces. It's the Nestle brand. In particular, it's not hydrative. If you've ever noticed, you've been super, super thirsty, you drink a glass of that and you're still thirsty. That's why. The other one, the distilled water, lacks minerals entirely because it is, it's the, what do you call it?
Condensation, evaporation.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. The condensation. So all of the minerals and everything stays in the potted water that's been boiled in order to create the condensation. But if you drink nothing but distilled water, you can literally die. You need minerals in your water. So what do? So this is a 2-part question. It's bigger than just the water. It's the pH balance in general. So water I get from spring mostly. And then I use a water filter system called Clearly Filtered. And it's just like Brita, only this version gets out the fluoride, which is not it's poisonous. Let's just get it real. So fluoride was something that was added to our water years ago by Carnegie and the family. They were creating steel, right? So the steel process creates a byproduct of fluoride. What's that?
Was it steel or was it aluminum?
I'm pretty sure he was big on steel for the buildings.
Yeah.
And he might have created a part of the amalgam of steel might be aluminum. I'm not 100% certain on that specific. But it is metals that are put together to make steel. You can't get steel ore out of the ground. You have to create it. Yep. So the byproduct then is this fluoride. And he's like, what am I going to do with it? And he sold the government on the idea of medicating us all so that we could have stronger teeth. But they're unrelated. So get it out of your water. It doesn't belong there because it causes something called fluorosis, which is the calcification of our, not just the pineal gland, which has become a popular thing, but all of our body. So pH balance, let's get to that. Where does it come from? And you mentioned a really good point. The stomach has its own acid level. Well, how come, it's not a universal pH balance throughout the body? Because each body part has its own DNA instruction set to be made up of a certain kind of recipe. And those recipes include the minerals. So the mineral content of each organ and part of the body that's what creates the pH balance. Your brain has to be acidic. Your stomach has to be acidic. There's other areas that have to be, and others need to be alkaline, right? So while it's great to have an overall alkaline diet, do not just drink alkaline water, because where we get our alkalinity or acidity as needed is based on the mineral content of the food and intake that we have. It's based on the subset, the DNA requirements to make that body part. People miss that. They don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, and these things are super easy to kind of get caught up on because they have such extreme enthusiasts. The distilled water, I've never seen like a crazy reverse osmosis person, but the distilled water people are just like this is Jesus, and like this is everything. This is life. And same thing with the alkaline people, especially amongst the plant eaters, alkaline, distill. Everything else is death. It's a very extreme culture, and it's nuts. But yeah, to me, the minerals are some of the most important thing. But let's talk actionables and let's talk what do we do, right? Because not everyone in their backyard has a beautiful spring of water coming out of their backyard. Yeah. Even to extrapolate further, if you were to go to your local spring, say you have one 10 miles away, 5 miles away, whatever, and you're like, there's a spring. Let me fill up from there. Well, what else is in the groundwater, right? That spring today might be polluted with the Roundup that people are spraying around the ground and this and that, and the whatever's coming down from the sky and the runoff and the this and the industrial cities,
Quit.
A spring isn't necessarily just a spring, and it's clean, and that's where it's like God. And then we get to the concept of a lot of springs are being filled in with concrete from our lovely government to protect us. But there's a little more to it than just going to a spring or getting spring water, isn't there?
Yeah, because there's a good, better, best in all of our spring waters, and there's governmental regulations that say, and it used to say, I haven't read it recently, but spring water, in order for a company who owns a spring to put, this is spring water, even 100% spring water, that label, all they have to do is supply 3% of the total volume of water. The rest can be tap. Yes, and the worst people, and I'm going to give labels. It's like Sparklets and Arrowhead. Don't do it. Crystal Geyser is pretty easy to get. They are nationwide, and you can go on to Avion is about the middle of the road. If you want to spend a lot of money, Voss, I don't recommend that just because it's so expensive. It's like $18 to $20 for a bottle. But you can go online and check. There are regulations of tests that occur every year, or at least at a interval of time that tells us what's in each of the springs. And I would mix up your water so that you're not just always taking from one spring or not always taking from just that one intake. So if you're doing your filtered water at home, do that 50% of the time, cook with it, drink it, whatever, and then get a filter for your shower head so that's suitable for hot water. So that way you're not showering in chlorine gas. So you get rid of those. Think about what you're doing to yourself when you heat up hot water, when you heat up water, right? And it's got chlorine in it. That has to go somewhere. At some point, it becomes a gas. Now you're showering in mustard gas. It's not the same extreme that was used in World War II, but it is the same stuff. Yeah. So it's just about common sense.
Yeah, I always recommend shower filters as probably the easiest, cheapest way to change your life and change your health for the better. There are so many on Amazon for like $15 to $30. I don't care which one. Pick the one that says X amount of stages. Are they real? Are they the same amount of stages, just the same cartridge and different Chinese labels? I don't care. Pick one that makes you feel good. Put it on your filter, on your shower, and it's really not that hard to feel the difference. So I put one on everywhere that I am. And even when I was living with my family, my mother and sister didn't really believe in it. They were like, you could do it, but I don't see the big deal. It wasn't, but 7 days later, they're coming to me. My skin feels great. My nails feel great. My hair looks so good. Oh my God. Yep. It's really not that hard to see. And yeah, like you mentioned, the chlorine thing is a huge thing. Anyone that's ever gotten lightheaded, during a nice long hot shower, which are great, that's chlorine, like you were mentioning. So that's huge. And it's so cheap and it's so easy. You don't need to be a plumber. All you need to do is unscrew your shower head, screw this on, screw on the thing. You could take it with you if you're traveling. Bam, bam, bam. Obviously, be careful not to damage anywhere that you are. I'm not encouraging people to, alter other people's property, but it's super easy and it's really not that difficult. But on the spring water thing, it is such a beautiful experience drinking from an actual spring itself. Because that's what I was saying. There's the bottles, and obviously we want to avoid plastic as much as possible. You do what you got to do. But when you have an opportunity to drink from a nice, clean spring, there's something that is so primal and raw and just innately beautiful about that experience and connecting with Mother Earth in that way. And so I spent some time traveling, and I was living up in the mountains on a tropical island, and there was an abundance of areas where there was just water coming right out of the ground, coming right out of the wall, coming right out of the rock face. And wow, that was just the most delicious and nourishing and energizing fresh water that I've ever experienced. It ruined all other water for me. But it's something that once you experience it, you really can tell, like, wow, all this other water is crap. It's such a shame.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so I spent 16 years in the stone industry and learned an awful lot about the properties of stone and how it works in our environment for the purposes of architectural work. But at the same time, as we're learning, I'm a geek. So I go in deep. And I wanted to know, how does a stone affect our water? Well, the reason why it goes through the groundwater and then back up through the spring is the rock, right? So it goes up through the mountain and the rock material. That is the filter. And it's not a quick thing. It's not like a short little thing like our filters on the countertops. We're talking about miles and miles of rock that it goes through. And then you've got the riverbed that's also lined with rock. So all of that process is constantly filtering the water. And that's why it's so pure. It's using nature. I don't know why we don't harness this better. Anyways, I have a story about.
We both know why. We both know why. It's disallowed at a societal level. But right? Yeah, I don't know why we, the people, of course, don't wisen up and do something about it. Like I said, my local spring actually even just got filled up with concrete. That's been, beloved by people of this old colonial town for, however long it's been in existence. But our government now decided to protect us because levels of
something that was made up arbitrarily without actually looking into why. Yeah, anyway. So it's education. But I have a great story about using alkaline water.
Sure.
I was at an networking event, and we had a lunch break, and there was another attendee, who decided we decided we were going to have lunch together. And so he found out what I do for a living. And at this moment, I was just focused on the health of the body. And so he prompted me. He's like, oh my gosh, let me ask you, I've been having this macular degeneration problem, and I've had perfect eyesight my whole life. I'm 80 years old. I've played golf my whole adult life, and now I have to stop. And so I said, well, how long ago did your macular degeneration start? So that means the back part of the eyeball is starting to detach, if you don't know. And that's a big problem for being able to see. You don't just lose your vision like need glasses. It becomes eventually blindness. Okay. So he goes, about a year ago. And so we went through and we troubleshot for about a 15-minute period. We're going through food. We're going through, sleep habits. We're going through, medications, and couldn't find anything. And finally, I just had that little intuition. And I said, what kind of water are you drinking? And his eyes lit up and got all excited. Oh, I got the Kangen machine and I'm doing this. And I go, when did you buy that? About a year ago. So I told him the story, all that stuff about what we just shared on the show. And I got him to agree. I says, I don't think you need to hire me. I think you need to switch back to your regular water. Stop drinking the alkaline water and see if your macular degeneration ceases. And I gave him my email address. And I says, let me know how it goes. Give it 30 days. And he did. About 45 days later, I got a message back from him. And he says, you won't believe this. Actually, I will. I went to the doctor and I have my full eyesight back. I am back to playing golf. Thank you so much for your advice.
It's often that simple, isn't it? It's often that simple. Given when the body is given the right conditions, it wants to heal. It wants to be better, and oftentimes it can. And it does take something so simple as that. And it really highlights how many ways people can get something such as water just wrong.
Yeah.
I was once advising someone. I'm not in a professional capacity. I'm not a professional life coach or anything. I just like to help those that are around me, and people come to me for advice. And I was working with this young man, and he was having insane digestive issues and nausea and vomiting and just all of these things. And he was trying to eat better. And then he said, like, okay, that's in the works. And I'm exercising. It's just every morning and every night. Like, I am just yakking. And so I was like, okay, asking him some questions, his habits, like, do you need to detox? Let's see what's going on. Like, are you drinking water? He's like, yeah, I'm drinking water. I'm drinking water. Like, okay, like, how much water are you drinking? Are you drinking enough? It's like, yeah, I'm drinking like 2 gallons a day.
Oh no.
Eva, this man was maybe about 140 pounds, maybe less. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that would demineralize you.
Let's start right there. Yeah, cut that down. Cut that in half, even.
More. Yeah,
Even more. Yeah, like stop. Washing yourself out, quite possibly.
Yeah. So then the next question becomes, well, how much water is too much? A gallon, if you are not exercising to the point of profusely sweating, you don't need that much. It's going to just wash your minerals right out. I suggest 3 quarts of water a day. That's it. 96.
So much nuance, right? It's like what size are you? What is your activity level? What temperature climate are you in? But also, what are you eating?
Yeah.
Are you eating a lot of food that itself has moisture and hydration content? Because that's possibly going to get. Oh yeah, I see you rolling your eyes. Is that not a thing?
Well, not so much rolling as in thinking about is the thing that is so important about water is the how much, when, and what kind, right? Those are my 3 rules. How much, when, and what kind. So how much is the 3 quarts of water? The when is between your meals, because when you eat, you're going to have some moisture in your food. And the last thing you want to do is add a bunch of water to your already poor digestion. It dilutes your digestive juices when you drink extra water with your food. And then what kind we've been talking about. But those are the specifics. So you can be drinking water and thinking you're doing really well by getting a ton down, but at a pint at a time. That's 2 cups, right? A pint at a time is what your stomach can hold. It's what your bladder can hold. So just do that 6 times a day and you're done.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit here. I think we've amply covered water. There's always more wonderful things to talk about. But your first pillar was physical holistic health. There's obviously a myriad of things we can get into there, but seems like water was today's topic. But let's get on to the next pillar that you've mentioned, and that's divine relationships. That's a very interesting one, isn't it? Can you first start by defining what it is to be a divine relationship? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so there's a spiritual, or I should say religious meaning that is separate from what I'm talking about. A lot of people, when they hear the words divine relationship, they think between themselves and God. And that is not the relationship I'm talking about specifically. And I don't affiliate with any one religion. I am a Reverend, but I am not affiliated with Catholicism. I'm fully recovered. Thank you. There is no one religion is bad inherently. It's just the dogma as you raise up into levels of awareness cannot be reconciled. And for me, I found it was better to be pure of intention, and my authenticity comes from my direct connection. So all of that said, a lot of people have, especially the Gen Xers, difficulty with dating. We have the most number of single adults on the planet in, especially the United States, but I'm finding it's everywhere that I've traveled all over the world. And they're meeting the same type of individual in a different body and ending the relationship in a similar experience. Very few people are finding success in dating and relationshiping. And while that sounds like something that people would want, at some point, what I hear from individuals are, I'm happier alone. And that's a problem. The problem is we can't really expand or grow outside of relationship. We can heal outside of relationship. We come into relationship for expansion and experience. The question is, what kind of expansion and in life experience do you want? Either one is fine. And what are the two options? Divine soul partnership with another person who is divinely led by some sort of life guidance. This is purpose, right? I have got a mission in my life and I want help with that, but I don't want a partner, but I don't want a secretary, right? We're not looking for a secretary out of our partner. Can I tell you how many men I come across who say to me, oh, you have a life mission too? We would work so well together. Can you take notes? No, I'm not your secretary. So next. And then you've got the type of relationship that's just domestic. And we're talking about people who want that traditional values. The woman stays at home, or at least is raising a family. And then you've got the man in the home. We're talking traditional. We're not even having the conversation about pronouns. This is physical man, physical woman, wanting children in a house, raising them, etc. That's what I call domestic relationship. So divine soul, divine partnerships are really, it's not that second stage of either one of these options. A divine soul relationship is the one where you know you as a divinity.
One where you know you as a divinity. So a divine relationship is one that you can exist within while existing within a divine state, or maybe a state of being your truest self. Is that a good summation of it?
That's a really good summation of it. A lot of people want the relationship without doing the hard work of getting to know who they are first. And that's where I start. I start with, all right, who are you? And they may know the personality of, like, for instance, you're Zach, that would be your personality as a 3D entity in a in a clay body, right? You're living a life. Eva, my personality, that's my ego. What we have is an opportunity to bring in the larger unseen part of us. Some people hear it as the higher self, or I said a second way, the larger part of us that's unseen. It's not God. It is our soul. It is our soul that has its own gifts that are inherent to it, that we are meant to be in touch with, and then bring in as our gifts to others in service. And if we don't spend time doing that, we are denying the rest of the population of those gifts.
And so is that something, and finding that inner state, is that mutually exclusive from being in a relationship? Is it possible to find oneself in that true way while already in an existent relationship?
Yeah, it may also occur to the person that the relationship is something you outgrow, unless the other person wishes to go on a journey also. And that is the inherent danger of personal development and spiritual growth, is you could outgrow whoever you're around. And for me, I guess I have experienced so much loss in people around me in my life that I'm like, okay, glad, thank you for being here. Glad for the time we spent together. I wish you all the best, and move on. But a lot of people grow very real attachments to the point of being unable to grow. So there is a way to do it, but you really have to bring the other person along with you. And if they don't want to do the work, it becomes difficult.
Yeah, attachment in a hard and unbreaking way and unflexible way is such a anchor to someone in their life. To hold oneself back for the sake of X, Y, or Z is really something that we need to, as an individual, always kind of analyze. Now, I am speaking slowly because there's also, I think, in modern times, the over correction of this in perhaps, part of the new age spirituality communities, blah, blah, blah. Like, don't be attached to anything. Fuck everyone. Everyone sucks. No, no, no. Do your thing. Blah, blah, blah. All right. Well, maybe that person is actually trying to advise you in a good way, and it is a good factor in your life, but they're telling you what you don't want to hear right now, even though it's true. So, I can't be attached to you. I need to go. We're not. So obviously there's always a nuance to the conversation,
Yeah.
but there's, of course, the old trope of someone kind of having an inner desire and drive for self-growth and feeling kind of committed to another person for one reason or another, and not really ever being able to flourish because it's dissonant with their partner or with whatever scenario they're in. And so they just kind of hamper themselves down and 40, 50 years later have a midlife crisis and go insane or just kind of live a miserable life. So somewhere in between those two is a healthy way to be.
Well, and that's the thing. It has become very clear. So I do a lot of this work when it comes to what I call essential love. It's based on universal laws. And many people are familiar with Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction and what she teaches. That's just one of the many laws that we are living by. And if we make sure that we make decisions from the places of a healed codependence, because this is a scourge on society, is codependence. An example of that is text me when you get home. Stop it. Stop it. Why? Because one, you're saying goodbye to that person right here and now, and your need to feel better depends on the text message you receive when they get home is the definition of codependence. Do not need to know when people, what did we do before cell phones? What did we do? Yeah. So we have to stop thinking that some things which have become normal are appropriate. They're no longer, right? And so we've become a little out of balance with our boundaries, what we ask of people, how much privacy we have. Thank you to Facebook and Twitter and everything else that is social media. We share too much. We overshare. There's a difference between what should be kept private and what's personal. You can share personal information if you want to help others, like we're doing here. Lots of personal stuff coming up. But I have privacy also. So there's some things that don't get shared. So these are simple boundaries around how we communicate, not only with ourselves, what we think of ourselves, but what we project onto others. And if we use universal laws to guide that, then we're making great decisions around who we're spending our time with.
Yeah, there's certainly, I think, an unhealthy or unhealthy way to go about that specific example that you just mentioned. And I think perhaps that you'd agree. But yeah, I think perhaps like, text me, and then like freaking out if you don't get that text perhaps, or feeling owed or obligated, or, when it throws you off center and it's just like, hey, we just went out to lunch. Like, bro, chill.
Right.
Then, that's probably an unhealthy way. But I think the healthy way is like when you genuinely care about someone, perhaps it's your mother, your father, your daughter, your loving, spouse or whatever committed partner. I think there's a natural curiosity and healthy in such of like, hey, like I want to confirm that they're good. It's like,
I disagree. I disagree because
I think it's gendered too. I'm going to dig in here. I think it's gendered. So if I were to be in a committed relationship with a woman, I would accept it as my obligation and my duty to ensure that that woman is safe at all times and is good. And
I will debunk it. Yes, go ahead.
And so I would accept it and happily so to want to ensure that that woman is safe. It has not been, attacked by pirates on the road and killed and this and that, whatever. Not in an obsessive way. And I'm not going to like start inventing scenarios in my head. But if for some reason something has occurred in the very off chance, well, now I need to spring into action and that's my duty. I need to go do something. I need to fix it. And I will accept that. And so I prefer, when I'm in a committed relationship, again, I don't feel owed and obligated to have anything from anyone that doesn't want to provide it if I'm in any arrangement with someone. But I do enjoy, when I'm with a woman in a committed way, to just have her let me know, hey, bam, you're good. Okay, you're safe. I can continue doing what I'm doing, knowing, all is well. That's my preference. And I think that's healthy.
You won't hear from her if she is in trouble until after the trouble is over. And there's
that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah. So if I know, okay, you're driving from here to here, that would take 40 minutes. Okay, it's been 3 hours, and we've agreed that you'll let me know. Okay, well, now I got to figure out what's up. That's part of it.
Yeah, that's based on the agreement. So when I get people who ask me, hey, will you text me when you get home? I tell them, don't give me a task to do. I'm busy doing other things. I'm gone. I said, we had a great time together. I'm going to look forward to the next time we see each other. But from here, you have no idea where I'm going. You have no idea between what my home is and this moment. I may be going somewhere else overnight between then. Why do you need to know in order to feel better? Because I asked them, why do you need to know? Oh, so I can feel better. That's codependency.
That's
codependent. Yeah. So there's always a motive. So it's be clear with the motive, make sure it's clean, make sure it's not out of codependence. If there's a real need to protect, then there's that conversation, like you mentioned, ahead of time. But the woman or the man, whoever's being asked, has to agree to it and have an expectation of, why aren't you texting me back right away? Is an inappropriate expectation on people. We are sovereign beings with calendars and to-dos and a life of our own. It meshes with somebody when we're in a relationship, but it does not become enmeshed. And that's where it gets into trouble.
Yeah, and that mutual agreement and comprehension and desire for an activity is, of course, the nuance in anything within a relationship, because when it's not that, well, then there's going to be disharmony fundamentally, and then, only from there. So, yeah, that's obviously an absolute qualifier to any arrangement between two people, romantic or otherwise. So what else is going on in relationships? There's codependency.
Big one.
Why is there such a state of people feeling unhealthily codependent upon their romantic partners or potential romantic partners? What's going on there?
Well, oftentimes codependency comes out of a wound. And so this would be unprocessed hurts and emotions that have not been healed or allowed to heal. Behaviors, especially socially, are taught. And if they're taught and accepted at a young age, we think they're normal, but they're just common, like the example we just extrapolated on. So I think going back to the basics is something about boundaries, social behaviors, what's being taught from one generation to the next. No one's talking about sovereignty. No one is talking about what it means to be healthy emotionally and have good boundaries. Not at this level. They're talking about what is taught from a religious aspect of what's expected of you based on your gender, talking about social gender applications of rules, stipulations, things that family want to place on family members. For example, I know that in Mexico, this is just an example that popped into my head. The firstborn daughter is expected to not marry in order to take care of the mother when she gets older.
Damn, that's
right?
awful.
I know, but we have our own versions of that. We are a melting pot of sorts in the United States, and we end up with a lot of old world styled family rules that have nothing to do with living the sovereign life that we were born into. It's like, you're a parent. Do you really want your kid to reflect just you? That's kind of selfish. That's a codependency right there. And that's part of the problem. It's like, did you give birth to children in order for them to serve you? Or did you give birth to children in order to be the giver of life? Like, let's talk about your motivations first. And these things are not really prepared for. What happens? People get pregnant too young, and then get married for the wrong reasons because somebody's pregnant. And then they're so busy trying to raise the children and make enough money in order to keep them alive that nobody's talking about what caused the problem to begin with. So there are some inherent issues around our communication, lack of education, and which can be so easily corrected. Ignorance is very easily corrected. It's just a matter of education and better life, quality of life, and decisions around how we proceed in the world and how we show up in the world can happen if we're getting back to the basics. And for me, that's universal law.
Yeah, people having children with people that they have no business having children with, or having children when they themselves have no business having children.
Yes.
It is obviously one of the biggest problems of society at large, because then if you yourself and that family is not in harmony, and that relationship is not in harmony, at least at the majority of the time, then obviously there's no way for that child to grow up in any other instance or any other way than, just traumatized and unhealed and just chaotic. And then obviously then that's when the government gets involved and they say, oh, no, well, that kind of makes the excuse for the government to come along and say, no, we will educate your children. And yeah, obviously that opens up every bit of nonsense. And it's such a huge problem. And it's crazy, right? Because although we have raising fertility issue rates because everyone's living so chemically poisoned, we also are seeing at the same time the less intelligent people, the less healed people, the more chaotic people are the ones running around having kids with a bunch of here, there, everywheres. And so then we see a growing population of unhealed people versus the people who do have themselves together are the ones who are like, well, let me wait till a time that makes sense to have kids. And they're having less kids, possibly having no kids. And then the numbers of craziness versus the numbers of people that are any sort of together, they're not necessarily going in a good way, are they?
Yeah, it's a pendulum swing that must return, so we've gone too far to this direction and now it's time, for it to median out. And that's going to take some education. It's going to take desire to be better, the being better part. That's what I'm interested in. Because what is the number one reason why we watch movies and TV shows?
I don't watch movies or TV shows, so I don't know why.
For the character development, we want to see, we know the end. We want to know how they get there. We want to know the process. We want to know the internal combustion, what's going on in a person's mind. How did they get from here to there? What was the catalyst? What was the one thing in their life or the multiple string of things that brought them to a decision to change who they are from being a self-centered, whatever you want to call them, to somebody of compassion and service? And that's interesting. And I think it's a hero's journey that all humans can put themselves on the path. They have the right, the responsibility, but they don't necessarily have the desire until there's a catalyst event to push them. Yeah.
And that's why I don't watch TV or movies, because I'm too busy living my hero's journey. And that's the problem. I think these movies and TV, although they can allow for exemplary behavior and take inspiration from, although that's becoming increasingly harder as most movies and TV are just, of course, tools of degeneracy and horrible behavior. But they used to be at least more so examples or providing of examples of, hey, wow, this person was strong there. This person was wise there. This person was brave there. This person was loving there. And, obviously it's an ideal that you take that and run with it in your own life and implementing. But I think too many people are living vicariously through these movies and feeling some sort of sense of accomplishment or having done anything at all, whereas they can take that same effort and then, again, like you said, live their own hero's journey and actually be the movie, be the TV show. Too many people aren't the main character in their own life at all. And they just kind of go into these movies to feel something as they just kind of dwindle away into nothing. It always creeped me out. So movies are okay. TV shows are okay. I'm not anti those things. But when people are really into movies, it's always kind of creeped me out. Those people seem always strange to me, right? Their whole personality and everything about them is movies. That's a deeply concerning individual to me, because it's escapism.
Well, they're in an extreme state of coping of some kind, possibly. possibly. We'll give them an out. Maybe they're just super interested. But that, escapism is a big thing. That's the reason why I don't date men who are into playing games, video games, gamers. I won't do that. Nope. And that's escapism in my experience. I'm old enough to kind of to look over the history of my life and who I've been around. And I've noticed that if you're paying attention to something outside of your own life and who's around you to a degree where it's almost addictive, that's an imbalance. And so it doesn't matter what it is. It could be gaming, it could be golfing, it could be, any one thing. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be movies. It's just, if it's done to an extreme, there's an imbalance that needs to be recognized.
Yeah, an adult who picks up children's games is certainly a red flag. It's very concerning. To me, the only acceptable thing, and what I do is I do occasionally play games, but you'll never like really see me by myself for more than like 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. The only time I'll really ever play games at large is with someone. As like a, hey, all right, it's the end of the night, it's the end of the day, I'm waiting on my computer to process something, or like, all right, we've done a bunch of other good real things.
There you go.
Now I'm gonna bust you up in Super Smash Brothers, and we're it's like a fun competition, and so then it's actually functional to me. That's a functional thing. It's bonding. It's kind of like a fun thing. I'll play, with my sister or whoever. It's like because then it's like a fun activity, competition, or even a collaborative effort. And so there's certainly healthy ways. Again, always nuance to everything, and it is genuinely fun. But yeah, obviously when you're just sitting there by yourself and you're a grown man, like, bro, go do something.
Get high a little bit and then play the video game. That seems to be the popular thing. Like, wow, that's life for you. I don't know. I live not only in the 3D world, but also in the other world of metaphysics. And so for me, I guess I would be bored too. If I didn't have the metaphysics side of my life developed, I guess I would look for a way to escape as well. So I'm always there, and life is so full of stimulation for me because I'm in both worlds at the same time. I don't need it. I don't need the extra stuff. I don't need the drama in life. I don't need your problems in my life. I don't, you know what I mean? It's like, figure your stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think, video games and most applications do more harm than good for children as well. But I don't think that's necessarily a inherent evil of the tool. No. Obviously, it's in the application, and not, in that regard, it's a parent's application or complete disregard and not even trying to apply it healthy, just saying, hey, go, here's your Xbox. Yeah. But I think it's very interesting, the positives of video games that are often overblown, but I think do exist as well in the, okay, it can train some quick reaction time, some hand-eye coordination, some creativity you could stimulate. One of the really interesting ones to me is when people get really into, as a child, the e-racing, like sim racing, simulated.
Oh, yes.
With the pedals and the shifter and the wheel and everything. And nowadays, actually, the real racing teams of real vehicles recruit from the e-racers to go and be actual. Like that's an awesome use case to me of video games and stuff. But obviously, the average person isn't doing that.
No, the average person is wasting away their time in some sort of fantasy game drama that has nothing to do with the purpose of their life.
Yeah.
What are you denying? What are you denying the rest of us by not developing your purpose?
Does everybody have a purpose?
Eventually. I feel like it's something that taps you on the shoulder. It's a spiritual tap that says, hey, recognize this as a point in time when you can take this on. And if you don't take on the purpose, whatever it is, you'll notice a downtick in everything else functioning properly.
Interesting. It's like for everyone, there is some sort of straight and narrow path, if you will, whatever that is for them, whatever perhaps their life goal or mission or intent is, whether that was given to them by God, whether it was decided by them before this lifetime, whether it is just the natural order of things, if that's what they're supposed to be doing. They have kind of something that they're supposed to be going towards, or a grouping of things that they're supposed to be going towards. And as people kind of walk that, things feel good and things work and things feel, I guess, aligned is a word that could be used. And then the more someone strays away from that, the more things kind of erupt into disharmony and chaos, and they have a bad time innately, even if they don't know why. It's because they're not walking where they're supposed to be doing. And I think that I very much subscribe to that concept. I think at least for most people, and or some people, the people that have souls and are real people out here. But I think a lot of people are so lost in the woods and have been so deviated from their path that maybe they'll never find their way back as well. It's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I learned to accept my relationship with the other side of the veil, and all the guides that I have, angels, guides, loved ones, dragons, you name it. It's like pull them in to help heal the demonic forces that are seemingly everywhere, and they're keeping people feeling muddled. They're keeping them feeling cut off from source, and therefore their guidance and their ability to bring in their gifts. And so anything that confuses you or brings you to a place of feeling lost in the woods, that's evidence that something is at hand to get in the way of your sovereignty.
And so what is that? What is sovereignty? What does it mean to be sovereign? Does that mean we should cut up our driver's licenses and
No, not that. Not that. We're not talking about the social sovereign thing that people are doing to get out of being a citizen. That's not it. World citizen is a different thing. Sovereignty, we're here to have an experience that is based on free will. Everything comes back to that. If I were a minister of anything, it would be the defender of free will. That's pretty much my mission. So when you have an interference, and it could be in the physical body as a toxin, it could be as relationships, somebody's trying to control you. Maybe you've got a narcissist in your family that's constantly at you. Or you have literally developed a relationship with some sort of group of people or other people, or even with yourself on the other side of the veil, that are at hand taking away your free will, your ability to make your own mind up, the ability to live a life without feeling like you're compelled to do things. I have to do this, otherwise I'm going to blank, right? People who are addicted to certain things, they feel that sensation too. A lot of that is ancestral wounding. A lot of that is, can be related to demonics, not always. Sometimes you need a soul retrieval. We don't know. I don't know what is needed until I get into a person's soul and I see.
I think most people rob themselves of their own sovereignty and keep themselves being unsovereign, and do so either unconsciously or in a coping way. And that is even at the smallest, even though it's quite large, level of self-talk and the way that we talk about ourselves and our language and our day-to-day activities. I will, if I at all care about someone, usually correct anyone around me that says I have to do anything. Not me, but if they say they have to do anything, I'll also correct them if they say I have to do it.
Ooh.
I will always usually correct people when they're talking about themselves. Oh, I have to go do this. I have to go do that. I have to go do this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you?
Yeah.
You want to do it, or you don't want to do it, or you're going to do it, or you get to do it. But you don't really have to, do you? You can just sit here. You could just go to the beach if you want. If you really wanted to, you probably could. Yeah. Now, is it going to have consequences or ramifications in some sort of regards?
Sure.
Yes. But do you have to do these things? Or are you choosing to do these things? Or are you getting to do these things? And that's the difference between empowered and disempowered language. And just changing the language for someone or opening up that framework, if they're at all receptive to it, can really change someone's life. Because what does that mean? What are the practicals there? I have to go pick up my kids. You get to go pick up your kids because you have these lovely kids. What if you didn't have children? That would probably be less enjoyable of an existence. You have been blessed with these children and they love you, hopefully, and you love them, and you get to go pick them up. Wow. Lucky you. Oh, I have to go get my car fixed. you get to go get your car fixed. But if you didn't have a car, that would be a lot worse. And it's easy to kind of dismantle everything and then make people, I can't say anything. But the point is, people are a lot more blessed than they believe. And when they don't feel blessed and they don't feel like they have options, that's when things start to get very unenjoyable and unfulfilled, and people kind of feel just being brushed along in the flow. When people realize, you know what, you really do have a choice. Certain choices might be harder than others. You might have made a series of choices that have stacked your life in some sort of way that kind of makes certain things hard, but you can shape life from right now onwards in the way that you want. You just have to comprehend that. If you don't, you're never going to, are you?
No, and the things that are commonly in our way that we put on ourselves and their learned behaviors are often fear, shame, and guilt. And this is why the essential love part is necessary on a healing journey to ascension for our expansion, for our sovereignty. Because if we have these, what I call those sticky spots, the sticky spots of fear, shame, and guilt, then we're going to attract or think we deserve. We have then a lower self-worth, and we think we deserve the treatment we're getting. We think that we have to do things when we feel compelled, as opposed to feeling like we have free choice and free will. So it's you have to be consciously aware of designing your life and choosing. Get rid of your tolerations. Examine what you're tolerating and get rid of them.
Yes, keyword tolerating. What are you tolerating in your life? Tolerance is such a overblown, corrupted phrase in today's day and age. We need to be less tolerant of things that are naturally and inherently intolerable, because toleration is kind of like an internal guiding figure and factor of itself. And when we tolerate things, we stand for nothing on an internal or a societal level.
Yeah.
Only chaos and disharmony and demonic behavior can ensue, because that's what those evil things thrive on, being tolerated. And you give an inch, you get a mile taken from you. And so we have around 7 minutes here in our session time. I think this is a good segue, even if it has to be a bit quick, into one of the things that you said you do absolutely want to talk about, the dispensation of harmony, the energies of the Aquarian age. And why I believe this is a good segue is that I think in today's day and age, in 2024, although we do see a lot of chaos and disharmony, I think there are, at least in the recent times, the most individuals out there having these conversations, such as the one that we're having, both with each other and with themselves, and starting to make changes and live in a more harmonic way, or at least trying to, in this wild world that we have amongst us. And so is there anything that you'd like to share about that topic? Although, I understand that time is short. Please do share.
Sure. It kind of ties up, though, in a nice little bow, everything we've been talking about. So people often know who Jesus is. I'm familiar with his work. And he brought in what's called the dispensation of love when he was here in the Piscean age, the beginning of the Piscean age. And he developed his leadership and teachings and had disciples. His disciples were instructed about the next age coming. They kept asking, when are you going to return? And Jesus replied with some sort of comment like, you will know, because the man will be carrying water. So if you know anything about tarot cards, you know that the Aquarius card is a man carrying water. Well, why is that significant? Because in Jesus' time, it was the women who carried water, not the men. So that was a significant, little step. The thing is, when you look at astrology, we are now in the Aquarian age. The Aquarian age is really about what water represents. It represents emotions, and emotions about regulating them. And that goes back to the essential love and the universal law. Universal law, one of them is everything has gender. And that means we all have masculine and feminine traits within us and energy within us. So this is the harmony within each person. It is our right, responsibility, and duty to get those two to harmonize with each other and stop fighting. We're doing a lot of fighting over gender stuff these days. And it's interesting to me that the gender conversation is coming up in the age of Aquarius. I find it interesting. And I know that in healing, whatever the problem is, it comes up when it's ready to be healed. So in the time of dispensation of harmony, the gender conversation is coming up because it's ready to be healed. It has been out of balance for a very long time. And we're in this place now where we can look at our, I don't call them toxic masculine or toxic feminine, they're injured. That's all it is. Would you turn away an injured person if you worked in the ER? No, you're there to help them. This is the time where we're going to the ER with all of our broken relationships, including the ones with ourselves, with those around us, and it is time to heal it. Whatever that takes, do it with yourself first. So this is the dispensation of harmony. It's starting now. It's on for the next 2,000 years. We've got a journey ahead of us. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what people do with it.
Yeah, all things have their equal and opposite, don't they? And there's the old saying, I don't know if it's true or not, I haven't verified, but people say that chaos and opportunity are, in fact, the same word in Japan or in Japanese. And that is very interesting, right? And you could relate it to the body because all things are fractal and microcosms and macrocosms of each other in the body. When we are detoxifying, first those toxins have to get to circulating, and that isn't a pretty thing. It comes with nausea and all sorts of symptoms that are very much uncomfortable. And we have certainly gotten to an uncomfortable part of this timeline in society. And nobody is comfortable anymore. Even as much as if people are trying to ostrich and put their heads in the sand and ignore the conversations and just kind of get on with their life and go along with the flow of things, even those people are really being disallowed from doing so at this day and age. And yes, the satanic, gender neutral mushing of it all, garbage of it all, was allowed to go far too far, just like the corruption of masculinity and the corruption of femininity and the demonization of healthy femininity and the demonization of healthy masculinity was allowed to go far too far for far too long. And we live in beautiful times where we are seeing both of those things kind of have the counter movements and the rising of healthy masculine figures and the rising of healthy feminine figures and feminine behaviors. And it's not an easy transition that's being made. There's obviously the pushback and there's the agendas and there's the vested interests that are trying to stop it all. And there's also the overcorrective behaviors and the unhealthy pendulum swingers into the other direction and the grifters and the this and the that and all these things that are complicating it all. But for people that are able to kind of use their intuition, filter through these things going on, I think we are seeing a lot of people make shifts and feeling more empowered and feeling more harmonious in themselves, even in this disharmonious current timeline. And so I would love to know, for our listeners and viewers that loved what you've heard and loved what you've said today, where is it that they could find you, and what kind of work is it that they can come to you for, and what is it that you're providing to the world through your work? What does that include?
Yeah, what I'm providing is getting the block, whatever that is. And oftentimes we can't see what that is for ourselves, hashtag block. We can't see it. So we need an outside perspective. And that's why I offer, if you go to the website, which is theelevateinstitute.com, you're going to see a start here calendar link at the bottom. Just scroll down and you can get a free 20-minute conversation with me, and I will listen to you. Most people haven't been listened to properly for the longest time. Most people, when they are listening, they're actually trying to come up with their own response. I'm listening, taking notes, and my job is to see if I can solve the problems and bring things to light for you. and give you the prescription of what's required. I offer so many tools, healings, and options. I don't expect you to know what you need. But I've done this work for so long now, I can properly see the starting point and then get you on that path, make the recommendation, give you options, answer your questions. If I can't solve your problems, I'll refer to someone who can. You know, I'm here to help you make a decision with the offers provided if you want to move forward. And that's all it is. So go to theelevateinstitute.com.
And is that open to anyone? Is it men, women, young, old, Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Y, any of the above?
Doesn't matter. I've worked with everyone, including children. Of course, the parents are the ones who reach out, but all ages. If you're a human being and have a soul that you want to, a body you want to protect, a relationship you want to protect, or a soul that you want to protect, then that's what I offer.
You're not coaching the AI entities yet?
No.
Possible business expansion for you. Reverend Eva, is there any closing thoughts and closing message that you'd really like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, just remember you're the only one who lives inside the bounds of your skin. And so if you have a question and you feel off about any part of your experience, you're probably right. Seek help.
Beautiful. Seek help, and seek help indeed. And whether that's through Reverend Eva or through all of the wonderful avenues there are out there, they are out there more and more. So thank you very much for coming on the show, Eva.
Thanks for having me.
A big thank you goes out to Eva for coming on the show. She was a lot of fun to have on. She's got great energy, and she's clearly very intelligent as well. I love when a guest has a variety of topics that they're able to speak on and able to speak on so well. So it was truly a pleasure to have her on. Be sure to check out her programs at theelevateinstitute.com. As always, you can check out my podcast and connect with me on social media by going to zachthehealthking.com. Plenty more episodes coming your way. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or you have any comment or recommendation, please do send me an email to zachthehealthking@gmail.com. Again, that's ZAK, thehealthking@gmail.com. You're listening to the Health King's Court. Ancient wisdom, modern health.